I think the thing that confuses me about this team so much is I almost don't know who they are by the time one half ends to another. We could look at, up six, momentum gaining against Dallas, and then you lose by basically 20. You could look at the Spurs game where they're up 9 at halftime. They get outscored 73-40. Look at the game against Miami, down 12, and then, a comfortable lead there with a couple minutes left in the fourth quarter. If I ask you to kind of describe this Lakers team, their identity, who they are, do you feel like you have an answer?
I mean, I think they are like a goodish team, right? Like to be realistic, and they've been a play-in team the last couple of years, right? They've hovered around sort of that 5 to 9 spot in the West this year. Like that, I mean, they're telling us who they are, right? In
Sure.
that way, right? And I think the symptoms of that are what we see on the court and what you're discussing. I mean, it's inconsistency is what you're describing, right? Like they are a team that is capable of hitting the highs. They are not a team that is capable of staying there for 2 straight months, like that. Like as of today, that's the reality of it, right? Like they haven't had okay. Let's say, I mean, if you're going to win an NBA title, right? Like you're going to play 25 games. Like they have not had a good 25 game stretch,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like pick pick a starting point and end point. They haven't really had one yet. They haven't had like they haven't had like a miserable one either. They had one pretty rough stretch early in the year, but like I think I think the like what I come back to is if I was looking for reasons to be optimistic, it, you just have to lean into internal growth and like moves around the margins because that's really your only crack at this is
Mm-hmm.
that you have to believe that JJ Redick will get better, right? So you just have to believe it. You have to believe that Austin Reeves, cast into this sort of like clear third star role, will improve. Because and the reason you would believe in it is because everything you put in front of him to date, he's done and exceeded. So he'll figure this out too, right? Like so you have to believe that. You have to believe that Jared Vanderbilt is going to get healthy enough to help a little.
Sure.
Like I
Sure.
think they're realistic about him in terms of like excuse me, his ability to play like 30 minutes a night, chasing around John Morant, right? I think you have to believe also that Max Christie's going to get better. And by the way, like watching him over the last 4 weeks, like it's a funny comment about the tooth fairy. Like you do sort of have to like you just kind of have like a lot of things are going to have to go right. It's not an impossible pathway, and teams do this, right? It's like this does occur, and sometimes a team like Dallas does it where they make they put their first round picks into play and they change their identity with 2 trades, and they take off, right? Sometimes that happens. And there are other teams sometimes that it's like a slower build, and you just kind of learn how to function together. I mean, I think that is probably the pathway, but they still need to like I was texting with someone last night. I mean, just like nine to 11 right now on the roster just isn't good enough. Like when they have to play, right? Like that was rough against Miami. Like those guys need to be better. Like getting Connect out of this funk is like so important to them based on where they are. But I would tell people who are like, well, if he's not going to get out of the funk, like just trade him. I mean, you want shooting, you need cost controlled players.
Sure.
Like this is why you're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
This is like it is the Goodwill Hunting math problem that is on the wall, and the Lakers have stared at it for 2+ years now, and it's a
Yeah.
hard one.
I think it's apparent that um, you're going to need a lot of things to go your way. You're going to
Yep.
need players who have been inconsistent to be more consistent. You're going to probably need some breaks in the Western Conference or whatever the case is. But that I think that's the reality of where they're sitting. And I think what you mentioned early on, that's not that much different than the last 2 years, right? Like there is some similarities to, yes, they got to the Western Conference Finals, but they had some breaks that went their way in order to get to the Western Conference Finals. But that's okay. That's part of sports. I mean, last year they had Denver in the first round. They didn't have him in the Western Conference Finals, and the season was over before May 1st rolled around. But I think that there's only a couple teams in the league where you got to feel really good about where you are, and you got to feel really good about, what the future looks like. The Lakers are in the mix with a lot of teams in the Western Conference where I think there's a lot of question marks.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Alan, are you a poker player at all? Ever?
Yeah.
Have you been a poker player?
Yeah.
It's like, I was texting with somebody about this. Like what poker hand are the Lakers right now? Right? Like what starting hold'em hand are they?
Mm-hmm.
And they're probably something like 7-8 of clubs. 9-10 of clubs, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like where it is a workable hand. Or maybe not even suited connectors, maybe just connectors. Like it's a workable hand, but like it's not aces, it's not kings.
Sure.
Maybe it's like pocket fours or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where and that's just the reality of it. Like the Thunder are aces, like right now, they need they are in as good a position for today and tomorrow as possible. They still have to do it, right? Like they still have to actually achieve it, and when it gets really important, you still have to do it. But, that team is there. Boston is there. Cleveland, conceptually is there. Those teams are right there. I think Memphis, certainly seems to, if they're healthy, know who they are and they have, a real thing. And they're going to be – I've heard they've been pretty aggressive at the trade deadline for what they're going to add and different things like that. But I mean, a lot of teams really what roster building is, and what building a team is, unless you're in a situation like some of those other ones I mentioned, where you've had a long runway, you've been able to add these picks slowly and build yourself that way, is you accentuate your strengths and you hide your weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If that's just what it is. You know what I mean? I would never, when I was single, I wouldn't have posted a picture of myself shirtless on Tinder. This is not what I would have done. What I did do.
But now that you're not single, will you?
Now my Tinder is totally different.
Not on Tinder.
Now my Tinder is totally different now that I'm not single. But no. I mean, I think Alan, what I did was, I'm not ashamed to admit this, is that I had a picture of myself when I was on TV, and I kind of cropped out everything, but it was hey, look at me, I was on TV.
Sure.
You're right. That was accentuate the strength, highlight the weaknesses. So I think that's true for everybody, right? And the Lakers have to figure out how to do it. You mentioned identity earlier. I think one of the interesting things JJ talked about earlier this year is how identity shifts, and it shifts all the time, right? And so you just got to catch it at the right time and figure out who you are at the right time. I don't believe this team is gonna be we're dogs. We're gonna win games 97-92.
Sure.
Suffocating defense. That's just not who they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's not who they are. They can be that way, but they're sort of play acting, right? You have to really, really work hard on them to get to that, right? So they can do it, but that's not who they are. And I think that honestly is what they're going to have to be. Alan, their strength is that they are sort of bendable, they are sort of pliable, and they're just going to have to meet the moment when the moment gets big.
All right, if you enjoyed this clip and you want more, just subscribe to the channel. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. is the Sliwa Show. And then after every Lakers game, post-game show right here.